Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling exhausted, confused, and somehow guilty, even though you weren't sure what you did wrong? Maybe you've spent hours replaying the conversation in your head. Maybe you've apologized for things that didn't even feel like your fault. Maybe you've tried harder, been kinder, been more patient, and somehow nothing ever seems to improve. If that sounds familiar, there's a reason. Because some people don't argue to solve problems. They argue to gain control. And the most dangerous part is that they rarely look dangerous. They don't threaten you. They don't scream all the time. They don't announce what they're doing. Instead, they slowly train you to doubt yourself, to question your memory, to question your judgment, and eventually, to question your own worth. But today, we're going to talk about 3 simple questions that can completely change the dynamic. Not because they're aggressive, not because they're clever, but because they force manipulation into the light, and manipulation cannot survive in the light. Let's begin. Sign number 1. Can you give me one specific example of that? One of the favorite tools of a manipulative person is the vague accusation. You've heard them before. You always do this. You never listen. You constantly disappoint me. You've never supported me. Notice the words. Always. Never. Constantly. These are not specific complaints. They're emotional weapons. The moment you hear them, your brain goes into defense mode. You start searching through memories. You start wondering if maybe they're right. You start trying to prove you're not a bad person. And while you're busy defending yourself, they've already gained control of the conversation. Because now the focus isn't on facts. It's on your guilt. That's exactly what they want. So, instead of defending yourself, try something different. Pause. Take a breath. And ask, can you give me one specific example of that? Just one. A healthy person who is genuinely upset will usually have an answer. They might say, last week, you promised to call and forgot. Or, when I was talking yesterday, you interrupted me. Now you have something real to discuss. A real event. A real problem. A real opportunity to fix something. But a manipulative person often reacts very differently. They get angry. They change the subject. They accuse you of being defensive. Or they simply repeat the original accusation louder. Why? Because there was never a specific example. The accusation wasn't designed to solve anything. It was designed to make you feel guilty enough to stop asking questions. And the moment you ask for evidence, the game starts falling apart. Think about that. How many times have you apologized for something nobody could clearly explain? How many times have you accepted blame simply because someone sounded confident? The next time someone tells you that you always do something wrong, ask for one specific example. Not 10. Not 20. Just one. You may be surprised by what happens. Now let's move to the second question, because this one exposes something even deeper. Question number 2. What would you like me to do differently? At first glance, this question sounds incredibly simple. Almost too simple, but it reveals something most people never notice. Healthy people want solutions. Manipulative people want control. There's a huge difference. Think about the arguments that seem to repeat over and over again. You apologize. You promise to do better. You try harder. Then a few weeks later, you're having the exact same conversation. Nothing changes. Nothing improves. The cycle simply starts again. That's because the goal was never resolution. The goal was guilt. When someone constantly complains without offering any path forward, they're keeping you trapped. Because a confused person is easier to control than a confident one. So the next time someone starts unloading complaint after complaint, stop and ask, what would you like me to do differently? Notice how powerful that is. You're no longer arguing. You're no longer defending yourself. You're simply asking for clarity. If the concern is genuine, they'll have an answer. They'll tell you exactly what they need. Maybe they want more communication. Maybe they want more honesty. Maybe they want more consistency. Whatever it is, they'll be able to explain it. Because people who genuinely want things to improve are usually willing to discuss solutions. But manipulative people often struggle with this question. Instead of answering, they might say, you should already know. If you really cared, I wouldn't have to explain. I shouldn't have to tell you. Listen carefully. Those responses sound meaningful, but they contain no solution, no direction, no clarity, just more confusion. And confusion is exactly where manipulation thrives, because if you don't know what success looks like, you'll spend forever trying to earn approval you'll never receive. Some of you watching this right now have spent years trying to become good enough for someone. Years. Changing yourself, questioning yourself, blaming yourself, not realizing that the target keeps moving, not because you're failing, but because you're playing a game designed for you to lose. The moment you ask for a clear solution, the rules change, and suddenly the manipulation becomes visible. Now let's talk about the third question, because this is the one that reveals everything. Question number 3. Is it possible that you might be wrong about this? This question sounds harmless, but for a manipulative person, it can feel like an earthquake. Why? Because manipulation depends on certainty. It depends on a simple story. I'm right. You're wrong. Every single time. Think about the difficult people in your life. When conflicts happen, who usually apologizes? Who carries the blame? Who ends up feeling responsible for fixing everything? If it's always you, that's a problem. Healthy relationships are built on shared responsibility. Nobody is right all the time. Nobody is wrong all the time. Human beings make mistakes. We misunderstand things. We react emotionally. We miss important details. That's normal. A healthy person can admit that. They might not enjoy it, but they can do it. They can say, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I need to think about that. Those words are signs of emotional maturity. Manipulative people often cannot say those words, because the moment they admit they could be wrong, the entire structure starts cracking. The authority, the control, the superiority, all of it depends on never being questioned. That's why even a gentle challenge can trigger a surprisingly intense reaction. Suddenly they're angry. Suddenly they're bringing up mistakes you made years ago. Suddenly they're acting like they're the victim. Anything to avoid answering the actual question. And here's what you need to understand. You're not asking them to admit they're wrong. You're only asking if it's possible. That's a very reasonable question. In fact, it's one of the most reasonable questions any human being can ask. Because nobody sees reality perfectly. Nobody. The ability to consider another perspective is one of the strongest signs of emotional health. And the inability to do so is often a warning sign. So the next time you're having a calm conversation and the moment feels right, ask, is it possible that you might be wrong about this? Then watch carefully. The answer will tell you far more than the argument itself. Now let me tell you something important. These 3 questions won't magically change another person. They won't instantly transform a manipulator into a healthy communicator. And they won't fix every relationship. But that's not their real purpose. Their real purpose is to change you. Because every time you ask for evidence, instead of accepting vague accusations, you become stronger. Every time you ask for solutions, instead of accepting endless criticism, you become clearer. Every time you calmly challenge the assumption that someone is always right, you become more confident. Little by little, you stop absorbing every emotional blow. You stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours. You stop living inside someone else's version of reality. And that changes everything. Because manipulative people are often prepared for your anger. They're prepared for your tears. They're prepared for your frustration. But they are rarely prepared for your calm. A calm person who asks thoughtful questions is incredibly difficult to control. And that's exactly who you're becoming. Before you go, I want you to remember these 3 questions. Can you give me one specific example of that? What would you like me to do differently? Is it possible that you might be wrong about this? Write them down. Save them. Practice them. Because one conversation can change your perspective. And one new perspective can change your life. If this video helped you, leave a comment below and tell me which of these 3 questions hit you the hardest. Was it number 1, number 2, or number 3? And if you know someone who constantly blames themselves, doubts themselves, or feels trapped in unhealthy conversations, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Thank you for watching. And remember, the moment you start asking better questions, you start seeing the truth more clearly. I'll see you in the next video.